We, the members of the committee, wanted to present to the FMA community, people here, people on Zoom, and people who may be listening to recordings later. A little looking forward to the session of Quakerism 101 that we're planning for this fall. So I don't think we have a specific agenda for it. Kurt and Mary usually prepare a little more than I do, so maybe they got some words they wanted to say about it. But the thought was just to run through what we would typically do on a Quakerism 101 and what we would do in this Quakerism 101 and sort of how the thing runs. So that's what we want to do. Either of you, Kurt or Mary, have anything to start with?
As far as we've got is that this one probably looks like the last round we did in terms of using the Rex Amber book, The Quaker Way. And that book has a substantial intro and 7 chapters, so it doesn't divide neatly into 6. But we would basically use that as a starting point and then have both readings from questions that arose from reading the chapters involved and time to talk. Traditionally, we've done 6 sessions. Thought was if we started in September, we could do 6 sessions before Thanksgiving without doing it every week. That's me for now.
I don't know that I'm prepared to speak to this, but do we want to talk a bit about the pieces that it would include?
Yes. Don't think I brought the book, but the chapter headings are very useful.
So we're going to take it by each chapter.
Yes, but as we said, we double up some on that in order to do it in 6 sessions. Sorry, I'm planning to do this.
I have this little concept that I always inflict on other people who are planning Quakerism 101. Well, there we go.
Oh, thank you.
Whoa. Yes. The Quaker Way. We can pass some out here.
Yeah. I could using this basically as an outline.
Here, I got that thing. I got it. We try to thematize each session, topicalize it, if you will. Like one session concentrates on Quaker history, another session concentrates on how Quakers do business, the Quaker decision-making process. Other session concentrates on the concept of the inner life, on Quaker social activism, and so forth. We understand that people are coming to these things. A lot of folks won't be able to make it to all of them. Somebody won't be able to make it to 1 or 2. And so we like to make sure that there's, even though on X day we're concentrating on this topic, we like to make sure that we show how this topic is related to the others. If the topic for a particular week is, say, Quaker process and Quaker business meeting, we try to tie that into why, how historically this arose. So we get a little bit of Quaker history. We also try to tie it into how, let's say, how we would connect this to the idea of the inner light. You know, and then also how this informs Quaker activism, the way that decisions are made. So, we would, and then next time if we're focusing on Quaker activism, we get in a little bit about how decisions are made, about what Quaker history has been, and so forth. So the idea is that if a person only gets to come to one of them, they will get a little bit of everything. That's the thought there.
And can I ask who here outside of the committee I'm the only person on the committee who's never gone through it. Who here has gone through Quakerism 101 here?
Has or has not?
Has.
What was the question?
Who has gone through Quakerism 101? Have you done Quakerism 101? No.
No.
I'm wondering if we can ask for the folks who've done it what they most valued, and for the folks who haven't, what they would most want to get out of it. I'd be very curious.
Let's see, I went through most of them, probably not the last time when this was used, but the time before that, maybe a few times when this was used. I enjoyed it because I didn't know much history, Quakerism history at all, a little bit, but not a whole lot. And so I learned quite a bit. I'm really interested in seeing how this goes too. I would want to participate in several sessions through another way. Not that the previous way was flawed in any way. It was enjoyable. But, this would be kind of I see it leading perhaps to a little bit more discussion.
Kip intimated something that I'm sure both Mitch and James would probably show us about as well, which is that this isn't conceived of as just something to introduce people who don't know anything or who are newer to our community. It's for members of our community who just want to participate in the discussion. And it's a nice mix of people because you do get people who are kind of brand new to our meeting of Quakerism, and you also then get other friends who have had a lot of experience. So it's a nice mix, and we hope that can continue.
The ones I have been to have been a combination of presentation by somebody who has read this book or another text that they found particularly valuable, and time to discuss. And I think I find both of those equally valuable. And gathering, they have this analysis before you go into a workshop that's how much is worship, how much is lecture, how much is participation. I would say for these, we have 10% worship, ideally 30% work, 30% lecture or direct presentation, and 60% discussion.
And I would say a fair amount of that discussion verges on worship. And a fair amount of that, more structured presentation is open to queries and to, toward what do you call heuristic, process where we, when you're talking about the inner light, you don't have to just talk about it. You can do the inner light. And similar when you have the session on worship, a lot of the presentation is doing it, or illustrating how we do it. Yeah.
Are there a series of queries, or are there queries throughout this book.
It up that way. It isn't one of these books with a study chart in the back.
But we have
We've done
come up, James, the first time we did with this book, James had a nice set of queries.
I personally divide the book in my mind that the intro and the first two chapters, which are called Finding the Light and Looking for God, are about seeking. The rest of it's about Quaker life, with 3 and 4 meeting others and making decisions specifically about the community. And how it looks in practice then is 5 through 7. Living faithfully, bearing witness, and changing things, which are all great titles for topics, chapters.
It's just once through that we use this, and for the sessions that I was leading for that, the way I came up with those queries was just I'd read the chapter, and then the questions that I had or the things that were troubling me, were just what I wrote down as the queries for the group, since I actually didn't know the answer to them. And it's always an advantage to Quakerism 101 that you do get a lot of people who are quite seasoned friends who've been in the community for a long time, and so they offer the perspective on what these things that I didn't know there. For me at least, I think the process of teaching and preparing to teach Quakerism 101 is actually how I learned about Quakerism largely, rather than being something that I came at with a sort of pre-existing body of knowledge. So that's kind of what's been most valuable to me, is that process.
There is a balance between having several people come prepared to give lectures and discussion that I think we need to hold. But at the same time, it's great to have people with lots of experience.
For those who just walked in, one of the questions that we asked earlier, in case either of you want to chime in, was if you've gone through Quakerism 101, what you most enjoyed about it, or if you haven't, what you would most want to get out of it.
I think we could possibly even expand that to whether or not you've been to Quakerism 101, what questions would you particularly like to get answers to this round? And I'm going to write these down because we'll use them. We'll use them.
I haven't read the book yet, but to me, I keep learning about Quakers through reading things like Friends' journals over the years, and to me, it like evolves. It's not like set in the stone, you know?
A question?
But no.
But the fact that Quakerism evolves, okay?
Yes. I guess I do have a question. The session, a couple sessions back, went quite a bit into Quaker history, and that approach lent itself perhaps more to the whatever percentage you said was lecture, because it was information. You know, this with pre-reading to be done, which is good, then it can lend itself quite a bit more, I would think, to discussion. But my question is, will that leave out important Quaker history? I mean, I have not read the book either, so I can't answer that based on.
Would you choose to leave out some of the history?
I think I would choose to ensure that some history was retained.
Okay.
I'm not sure what history, but I
Yeah, I have a question on your opinion
Go
about
ahead.
this. Can you hear me? Yeah. About this talkative development in Quaker history. It used to be that speech in the meeting was limited to extraordinary moments of somebody's life. Now, in recent days, it seems to be talk as much as possible. And, I went to the movies yesterday and it was very touchy, and then give a long speech. And it seems to be very interesting to the person who speaks, but probably the rest of the audience is not so much interested. So this seems to be the future habit of how meetings are going to be held. So I would be interested in what you think about this development.
That sounds like a great thought to pursue in several
Mm-hmm.
of the different sessions we have. Point out that there have been cycles, which have already been through, of Quaker history, where this is more what Volker was talking about. This is more and less true, and even cycles over the period of, say, a year or so in this meeting itself, where we have long periods, maybe several months, where there are no messages in meeting, or maybe only one. And then other periods where it seems to be more active. And I don't know what brings about these cycles, but they do exist. And people are concerned on both ends of the cycle. When we've gone several months with no messages, and I'm on worship and ministry, so this gets discussed there. People like is the meeting becoming spiritually dry? Is there, and then we always remind ourselves at that point, no, sitting there waiting in silence is the worship. The worship is not speaking necessarily.
And is there a question?
The question is about the can we talk about people talking, being
Yep.
more messages
Okay.
versus less?
Can we talk about message rate, whatever?
About the frequency of vocal ministry? Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess I was a little bit answering Volker's question because it seemed a bit urgent. So excuse me for that. It's not to our theme, perhaps.
One of the things that I remember from a course that was probably 25 years plus ago, I don't know how long it was, but it was done, a number of these sessions were done experientially where you moved around the room according to questions that were asked, to help people see some things. And going back to another occasion of learning a great deal was during my clearness for membership. And I remember Joanna was in this group, and I was talking about how wonderful it was to be with like-minded people. This meant a lot to me to have this familiarity with others. And she said, we're like-minded. And I thought it was a wonderful question to have. I was like, because, we're all on a spectrum, each one of us, but we're all together and we're all one body, one spirit. And yet we don't see eye to eye if we were to come down to specific things always, I think so the question would be, what do Quakers believe? And that's I have some answers to that. That means we don't have a creator. We don't write down what we all must believe in or agree with. But it is important for us to realize we won't always agree on everything. And how do we deal with it?
Another question is, in teaching history, how do we relate to sort of the major figures and periods of Quaker history? Not just what happened, but what is the spiritual significance of them or of those periods to us? Like George Fox and Quietism and all of these sort of William Penn, all of these people, they were very much of a different time. They thought in ways that seem very alien sometimes. And what do we draw from them? How can they be sort of teachers or guides, or should they be teachers or guides for us these days?
You think somebody else might benefit from? My favorite one is, what are all those Quaker organizations with alphabet names?
I think a lot of people would be interested in the different committees and what they're
Oh, good.
what they're used for.
These couple of things bring up the idea of an overarching question, which is, what is Quaker? What in general, what is the structure of Quaker organization? Lead into talking about the monthly meeting, where authority resides in the monthly meeting. You know, in other words, it's in the whole body of the meeting gathered for business, then quarterly meetings, yearly meetings. Then how does that relate to things like FGC and then some of the other Quaker organizations that are under the FGC umbrella? And because people, I think, sometimes think that FGC or the yearly meeting or something has some sort of authority, which is not true, you know. But it's kind of hard to explain, you know, in terms of organization. So I think that's worth looking into. Quakerism 101.
Yeah, I heard that.
Any questions you think, not just yourself, but people in the community might want to have answered during a series?
Have you mentioned that we have a new faith and practice in our yearly meeting and talked about faith and practices? You know?
No, we haven't.
That's a good one.
Okay. That's an important thing. The yearly meeting has no authority over us, but there's an attempt to express what we are doing in our meetings in a faith and practice that is common to all the meetings in a particular yearly meeting. And there is now a draft of that document. And I think in terms of faith, I don't think any of us would have much in the way of problems with what's expressed. But in terms of practice, our monthly meetings do some very different things. And I think it would be important for us to be looking at what is in there and seeing how it reflects on what we do, and seeing if we either need to make some changes or we need to say, no, that's not the way we do it. And, you know, maybe we should try it this way. So I told the ARE that I'm happy to do once a month to go over that document, which is online and anybody can look at this point and read it. And half of it is about faith and half of it is about practice. So, and it's practice in all the levels of Quakers. Not Friends General Conference or Friends United meeting or anything like that, but up until the yearly meeting level. So, but it has to do mostly with what goes on in the monthly meeting.
And what question would you think people have about that?
What question would they have?
Basically, what I was trying to do was create a list of the questions people had as we finish our planning.
How does the faith and practice affect what we do here in our monthly meeting? And also, how do we use it? Because the faith part we're supposed to be using. And it's full of quotes and things. Good. Thank you.
Any questions you have left?
Are we responsible for others outside of our community?
Very good.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about change, the last chapter. Works on that one.
Care for the members, for each other in this meeting. How do we show that care?
Um,
Bella.
I think eldering should be discussed at some point somewhere. I think most of us think of eldering as correcting others, but I think really it's supposed to help each other grow spiritually and to watch and to tell somebody when something really worked or how they're what they're doing, if they're going in the right direction and you appreciate it. That and what we do in conflict, and what the limits of hospitality is. I mean, there and how we, of course, this is care and counsel, I think. Well, I don't know. It's probably care and counsel and worship and ministry. But we have had conflicts, and some of them, and the results have been different. But we weren't maybe knowing each other enough to talk to each other about things that you don't understand that they said that would be problematic to you. Which, if you knew more, it might not be. So anyway, that's what comes up for me today. I really appreciate this discussion. I think it's fabulous. And I'm taking notes. Thank you.
Make a note that you have notes in case mine don't make any sense.
Okay. Good. I'm agreeable to that.
A nice question to ask is how has participating in Quakerism changed you?
I like it. I would like to know about from people what are their favorite resources, books or articles that they go back to because they're valuable to them. Favorite Quaker resources. Friends Journal.
Yeah, obviously I'm on the inside track serving on the committee, but what I would add, is that I've heard, and then I feel like I've actually only heard, I'll say answered poorly, not here, is, the question, what is Quaker theology? What is it? What are examples of it? And how does one do it? And I say the only answer I've heard has been a poor answer because I've only heard the answer, again, not here in the meeting, that there is no such thing.
But that's what you're studying.
But I think it's less what is it? I think that's usually the question. I'm more excited about the question like how does one do it? Which I think some of the things we've talked about are examples of that. But I think the doing is an example of what it is.
Resource, something I'd always point people to is Margaret Fell has a great little, I guess you call it an essay, or maybe it was a pamphlet at the time, Vindication of Women Speaking in Church, which I think is just a really, thinking of Quaker sort of theology, is a really very cogent theological biblical argument about why that Christianity wouldn't exist if women hadn't actually said that the tomb was empty, all these sort of points at which women have been sort of really crucial to it. And also it sort of, I think we often, and partially agree, because like we focus a lot on George Fox and sort of the male star figures at the beginning of Quakerism, and it's nice to hear Margaret Fell in her own voice.
Sorry to put you on the spot. Is it time for me to?
Oh, just, yeah, probably 10 till, it's fine.
Okay.
We have about 5 minutes till 10 till for all of us.
Yeah, and I only see our one in there right now, so.
Sorry, for context, I'm facilitating children's RE today. And I'm going to proactively ask everyone to hold me in the light because I'll admit I don't work with children often, so I'm nervous.
Tear you apart.
Might be tickled to death.
This month.
I think you'll have a good day.
I feel like it's gonna be a great session. A lot of questions.
We discover that there are so many things going on that the session times we had not had planned run into other conflict with other events. If you had to choose between returning late on Sunday afternoon to have a session or having it on a weeknight, which would you choose? And then you can suggest other possibilities. Like 4 to 6 on Sunday afternoon. Or a weeknight. Sunday night.
Mary, could it be 1:30 to 3:30?
The trouble is, every Sunday except 4th, there are things going on then. And we had originally, that's what we have traditionally done. But it's hard to know how to do it with other things that are already scheduled.
And I don't need to ask another question before answering that one, but would we do it online as well?
Let's see, or to start with online and see if we could come up with a common time to meet in person.
For the last couple of times we did hybrid sessions, and it wasn't the last time hybrid.
Would make weekday sessions easier if we hybrid was in.
I deliberately left that till the last minute because I don't expect us to solve it. On the other hand, you're very welcome to give input to any of the three of us because we do find ourselves in a dilemma.
One advantage that's I've noticed in the past to having it sort of closer to the rise of meeting, so around the 1 o'clock time, is sometimes people will show up to meeting and they'll maybe this will be their first meeting,
Right.
and they'll be like, "This was so interesting. What is happening here?" And then because well, we have Quakerism 101 happening like in a few, and people will sometimes stay for it and actually I think be able to connect in a very immediate way. That's a advantage.
This brunch is the big conflict time for second week. And we certainly don't want to exclude young friends. We certainly don't want all young friends to miss brunch. So it's a puzzle. Know the answer.
I could brainstorm with people. There might be some, I think it is good to have some sort of regular social type gathering. Yes. That's valuable. It's worked fairly well to have it then. But maybe there's an alternative way we could move that around to, or to something else that people would feel wanting to gather for. I don't know.
Tell us your suggestions. Obviously, September is coming quickly. If we're going to start in September, we have to resolve this soon. Thank you, friends. Running out of time.